What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Redemption with Jaden. I know it's been a couple weeks, and we are back after Nats. Took a little break, but we're going to go back into it, get some more games in, and talk about some more Redemption things. And today, in particular, I'm going to be talking about Nats 2020 and particularly what I was running in Type 2 player. I'm going to go over my games, do a little commentary about how they went, and maybe talk about some of the other events too. I also played Type 2 multiplayer in teams. I guess I'll just do that right now. So Type 2 multiplayer, it was just my brother Justin, Tyler Stevens, and John Mielishin. It was just the four of us. We played 3 rounds, just see how it went, or just because it was just four of us. We wanted to at least get a few rounds in, and it was kind of. Sometimes Type 2 multi can be a bit of a drag. We only got 4 rounds in each of the games that we played, and so it's kind of race to the dominance. Whoever can get the most quick rescues and is probably going to win. But it was a lot of fun. I mean, lots of thinking that had to go on with counters all over the board and everybody building up their stuff. I did end up taking the W on that one, so that was nice. I was using a Throne Philistines deck, sort of similar to the deck that Tyler was using in Type 2 player, and it's definitely very fast and pretty effective. I mean, the defense was barely had any battle winners in it, but it did have the Betrayals, the Philistine Chariot and Horses, basically just all the cards that you just throw a blocker out and you draw some cards, and if you end up with the block, then good. If not, well, it's Type 2 multi, so that's not too bad. And then teams, I teamed up with my brother Justin, and we ended up taking second to Josiah Beers and John Early. It was a really close game that we ended up playing, and I think we ended up playing in the second round. Really close game, and they ended up getting the one soul over us on the timeout that got the win for them. So congrats to them. And it's actually kind of funny. They mentioned, or they realized, I guess, that the two of them are the only two people to have gotten a team's victory with 3 different people. So that was kind of some fun redemption trivia for you. So back to kind of the main thing of this video is Type 2 multiplayer. I already posted the deck list on the boards, so if you haven't checked that out yet, you can hit it up it's in the description. And ran my Type 2 version of kind of the what was called Jet Priest that I called Lightning Priest, because it works around this combo that you can get pretty quick, easy on, or early on. It's really easy to get out, where you just cycle out 4 of the captive priests. I'm running 3 in the deck and then 1 in reserve down here. And then ideally you get this on the first turn. There are a lot of ways to get those out, the Lost Souls, and we'll kind of talk about those. And then you end up with you go to Ezra, and then Ezra returns one of the captive priests, bans to him, and then you go to Priest of Christ. So ideally, either you'll get a Lost Soul or your opponent will block, and you'll be able to search your draw pile for any good dominant, which is going to be Valley of Dry Bones, which you can play to release all captured heroes, so you get all 4 captive priests back, and then you banish Valley of Dry Bones to add them all to battle, and you go to your deck to search for some priests. And it's super fast. You get those priests, cycling every turn again with Ezra once you get the 4 out for the beginning, and then you've also got 4 captured heroes that you can rescue. So you're basically minimizing your odds of getting soul droughted, which is pretty nice, especially if you're running a faster deck, more aggro style. So I guess we'll just kind of go take it by each section. I mean, in Type 2, you have to have your good and evil have to be balanced, and then you have to have at least 100 cards. If you're not as familiar with Type 2, I definitely recommend trying it out sometime. Maybe I can, or I'm hoping to get a Type 2 video up soon. I mean, playing Type 2 on Wacky or online is just, I mean, as you can see, the deck, in order to make it visible, I did scale it up a little bit, but it's still, I mean, the deck itself pretty much takes up the entire board. And in Type 2, the games can get pretty long, and if you're playing online, it's even longer, and it's kind of a mess. Gotta try to persuade somebody to play with me, but it's going to be a long video, and but I think it'll be fun. I want to try it out sometime. So first with the Lost Souls, pretty standard, just kind of aggro Lost Souls, I guess. I mean, you want to get your value out right away, and so they kind of seek to get a Captive Priest on the first turn, and then you can also just get a few other things set up right away. So like Exiles is going to go to Covenant with Abraham pretty much every time in reserve, and then you can activate it to take a Captive Priest from reserve. That's going to happen a lot. And then Remnant, you can also just take the Captive Priest from reserve with that. Hunter goes to either Exiles or Remnant. Covet can go to Exiles or Remnant in your opponent's deck, since a lot of people are running those Lost Souls. You can also grab some pesky Lost Souls that your opponent's running. Distressed is all over the place, and that kind of hurts the defense with the Babylonian Merchants and the Soothsayers of Babylon. And then other things like Punisher can really hurt this deck because it's got multiple brigades with all these dual brigade priests and a few splash heroes. Prosperity is pretty much in there, I mean, to help get set up right away, and then also having more cards to draw in the first turn, or the more potential for card draw like right away to get more Lost Souls out, is good for this deck, because ideally you really want to go first, because if they put down some evil characters on their turn, or they activate any number of the counters that really hurt this deck, like Sheol or Hezekiah's Signet Ring or Jonah, anything that punishes searching is really going to hurt once you are trying to cycle out those Captive Priests, and then trying to you have to search for Valley, and then you have to search again when you add all the priests to battle. Darkness is in there to get the Prophet or Babylonian Merchants set up right away. I can also grab Deceiver so that I can go to a Nebi right away, which is a really strong first turn play. I really like blocking with Nebi and then adding a Betrayal to battle to underdeck a good card from their hand, because early in the game probably not going to have a whole lot of options, and then getting that draw 3 right away is pretty solid for getting set up. And then Wicked, that was kind of a last minute add. I switched it out for Distress the night before the tournament, and I think it was worth it. I mean, I didn't see a whole lot of like territory class characters that I really cared about. I mean, there are a few Jonahs, and a few other random characters here and there that would have been nice to negate in territory, but for the most part, I mean, with how strong Throne is right now, and Isaiah being able to protect your heroes CBI or CBN, then Wicked is definitely a big part of the meta now. It was kind of before, I think, but it was only like a few certain decks that really played it. Like if you have a lot of or if you're playing like both Death of an Righteous and Suicidal Swine Stampede or something, and you target you want to shuffle your Lost Souls, there's lots of soul protection right now because of how popular Sheol is, and with Abigail being a staple in the Throne deck, then Wicked is definitely a good response. The 3 dual dominance, definitely playing all 3 of those because they're all super strong. Chronicles of the Kings is definitely worth including in a Type 2 deck. I mean, it's actually like Type 2 used to have no problem with Dom Cap. Like, it was really no issue. You could put all the Doms in you wanted, but now there are really enough good options where you have to kind of consider. I mean, you can see I don't have Doubt in this deck, which was maybe a mistake. I should have put it in. Wait a second. I think I did put it in there. Yeah, that was a mistake. Okay. Doubt is in. What did I take out for it? I think I took out Mayhem for Doubt. Yep, that sounds right. All right, we'll just flip that upside down so we remember. So this is, I think I took out Mayhem for Doubt, and I forgot to make that switch here. So I cut Mayhem. That was, one that's generally included in most decks. And really, I think it might have been good for this deck. I mean, because we're so character heavy and we have lots of territory class good enhancements, then you can and territory class evil enhancements, then you can empty your hand fairly well and then get lots of value off of Mayhem. But with so many people playing Storehouse, then you can't really mess with your opponent with it. And I don't know, maybe maybe it'd be worth taking out Rebel and Dust or Vain Philosophy for it. After maybe you can test it out or give me your thoughts on that. But the offensive dominants are pretty much secure. There's no Grapes of Wrath, which is another debatable thing. But I guess, ideally we'll never be behind on Lost Souls. I mean, obviously can't think of ideals all the time, but it's also good to be used on defense. But I don't know. I think the slots these days are so tight that Grapes just doesn't quite cut it unless you have like a side battle card to use Grapes as a battle winner. There, you can choose two evil characters to fight each other and then display Grapes in that battle to take out the evil character that was blocking that you moved over to the side battle. So artifacts, Asher Bowl I thought was going to be really strong, and it did end up being okay. I think I didn't use it as much as I would have hoped to. Usually I had wanted the slot open for like Flying Scroll or Captured Ark, or if I didn't have Zerubbabel's Temple yet, then I would need it for Book. So I definitely do think it's worth it, though. I mean, especially with like Pagan Sailors, you can activate it mid-battle so your opponent isn't expecting it. So yeah, I don't know. That's definitely one to play around with. Maybe Household Idols would be better, especially with Throne having so much banding right now, and the new one only protects protects heroes from opponents' band abilities. So all the banding I have in here would be okay. Would be safe. Book, yeah, obviously. Another first turn way to get Covenant with Abraham. To a Captive Priest, Endless Treasures, great for drawing, and then character stealing is kind of a big part of my defense. I've got 2 Flying Scrolls, 2 Nyx Teachings, and these really help to play a little more control, take out some key characters like Jonah or an opponent's bad merchants, or just like those key components of the different offenses. Like Throne, you can take a Jehoshaphat or a David, played a Daniel deck, and so I was able to take Daniel. Unfortunately, the new Wall of Protection doesn't protect characters in your territory, it protects your characters. So if you take someone's key hero with Flying Scroll or something, then you want to take it to your hand and then just either hang on to it or discard it and hope that they don't have a way to recur it, because they can still ban to it from your territory, which so maybe that's worth playing like Whirlwind and Everlasting Grounds instead of Wall of Protection, but then your defense is susceptible to choose the blocker, so maybe both. I don't know. Another thing to consider. And then Delivered is just another option for first turn combo, because I can go grab Book of the Covenant and then grab Covenant with Abraham. Same thing with like offering your son, and then we also have 3 Zadok Anoints. So if we hit one of those, then we can go to offering your son or to delivered, and then to book, and then to Covenant with Abraham, and it's just so many options that I think I had at first turn in every single game. Whether or not I was actually able to do it on the first turn every single game is a different story, but we'll get to that when we talk about the games. So talked about dominance already. That's pretty standard. OT Angel of the Lord. I should always use the OT Angel of the Lord these days, especially. I mean, if you're running David Hard After God, but also even if you're not, your opponent might be. And if you have an option to ban to him, then you want to go to Angel of the Lord most of the time, I think. Then there's also, I mean, like Spirit as a Dove is like maybe the one card that I think would justify using the New Testament Angel of the Lord. Maybe there are others, but that's the only one I can think of. So then Fortresses, Storehouse, basic protection, Wall of Protection. I thought Choose the Blocker would be pretty popular. I mean, in Throne, you've got a few options there with Asahel and Elijah, and so I think Wall of Protection is probably a staple in Type 2 these days, unless you're playing like animals or another defense that's hard to target with those Choose the Blocker characters. But also, I mean, protecting from banding and side battles is pretty good too. I only have the one Meek hero with David here, so didn't really need the protection very often, but nice added benefit. And then kind of the one part that maybe could use some testing in the deck is running, or like which of the temples to use. There's definitely reasons to use all of the different ones. I ended up going with Zerubbabel's temple, but I mean, so the Tabernacle, if you end up, if I found that I wasn't having enough battle winners or something, and I know like some people who tried out the deck since last year, since I played it then as well, they were finding that they needed more battle winners, and so put some like single brigade teal battle winners in reserve, like Zeal for the Lord, Gifts and Offerings. Then Tabernacle can be really good for getting those out, and we got multiple Tabernacle priests, Aaron, Eliezer, Zadok, Ahamaz, those 4, and then I mean, you got to have enough to have a hero for Zadok Anoints. And then Solomon's Temple, also a decent option because you've got Jeremiah. He's a Solomon's Temple priest. He might be the only one in this. Jehoiada Kingmaker, and so you can use the instead for those guys. Which, I mean, you're probably going to have teal stuff to spare. I mean, especially if you have like some spare heroes and you can just bounce some of them with Oath of Purity so that you can burn them on Solomon's Temple. Can be pretty good. But I ended up going with Zerubbabel's Temple. I mean, it's a new card. I kind of wanted to try it out. It's got the Soul Gen option, which I never ended up using because I took out Feast of Unleavened Bread and only had one feast in here. But I think, and I never really needed to generate Lost Souls with Captive Priest, at least not in the late game when I would get Z Temple out. But I do like having the top deck option. Basically, once you get Joshua out, then as soon as you put in a few post-exilic heroes, so Zechariah, Joshua, Ezra are all post-exilic heroes. And Haggai, if you push any of them out, then you can just top deck any of the good cards you need from reserve and then draw them with Joshua, which is pretty nice to help get things set up. Usually I didn't really find myself needing to do that because once you get Covenant with Abraham, then everything else comes out pretty quick. I mean, so Bethlehem and City of Refuge and Dutiful Priest can all come out with Covenant with Abraham as well. And then Noah's Ark can also be played with Haggai, or can be grabbed with Emmaus Road or Covenant with David if you played on David. So didn't really see a whole lot of play, so maybe it would be better to have Solomon's Temple just for that instead option. But like I said, just wanted to try it out. Then I do have kind of with David in deck as a nice way, or another way, I guess, to kind of help get things set up. Lots of fortresses in the deck that I wanted to grab. Um, Nice to get those out early, and then also it's another way to grab David from deck. Um, I realized that it's another way to get Nebuchadnezzar from deck on the first turn. I never ended up actually doing that, just because getting David is a much better play, which I'll kind of talk about why he's in the deck and why he fits so well. Is kind of the main big addition from last year. Otherwise, the deck is mostly the same. You'll notice that there aren't really a whole lot of LOC cards in here because Priest didn't get too much. I mean, so you got Jehoiada, and that was pretty much it for Teal. So now going on to the heroes, pretty much basic, just like all the strongest priests, and a few. Ahamaz didn't really have him. He didn't do a whole lot. I mean, it is nice to have that protection. So if you use Urim and Thummim to look at your opponent's hand, and all they've got is scattered or like a capture ability or something, then you can just end your band with Ahamaz and protect from capture underdeck and set aside abilities, which is pretty good. Although it is interruptible, which kind of makes Seized by Babylon still work, or any of the horses to interrupt, draw two, and play makes those work as well, which is a little unfortunate. But he's kind of just a situational, especially maybe kind of a first turn option. If you've already got a few of the other priests out, you can get him out in case you're worried about scattered when you play Valley. But usually the four priests that I go to are Zechariah. He kind of just finishes things up, and then because I want to make sure I have another temple priest. I guess usually I already have Ezra. He is Azarul's temple priest. So I do usually negates enhancements, which is kind of what you want to go for right away. But I also get Eliezer out right away because he's another part of the engine to get things going. And then I get Melchizedek out usually because Sheol is such a big target or kind of a nuisance to this deck. And then usually the last one kind of depends. I pretty much always want to go to a Tabernacle Priest so that I can get two triggers off of Eliezer. So he triggers off of himself and then off, usually either Ahamaz or maybe Aaron. Zadok can also be good. But basically just want to get one of those guys out so that I can search for another House of Eliezer, or I can search for two House of Eliezer priests and then also get Urim and Thummim out right away, because once you get that out and you just start looking at their hand every turn, then that's how you know which heroes to attack with, and with so many options you can do that. And then Joshua is pretty much always the first House of Eliezer priest you want to go to, just because getting him out can help for some of your searching, and then also with Zerubbabel's Temple, Triumphal Entry, grab a hero or get down it from deck, so it's a way to grab Son of God. Or in a pinch, you can use that to grab Valley of Dry Bones if Priest of Christ doesn't work. And then also is nice, or Joshua is also nice with Exiles, since they've got pretty much all the best star enhancements in here, since they all have Teal. Then you just top deck the one you want. And grab it. So David, he was a new addition, and really the ideal opening is being able to get both Captive Priests and David Heart After God, because if you can get to David, then he can just grab Valley from your deck, and so you go Captive Priest, Captive Priest, Captive Priest, to Ezra, to Jehoiada, band to David, convert him to Meek, search for Valley of Dry Bones, play it, and grab your priests out, and then you don't have to worry about them choosing not to block, or if they don't have a lost soul and it's just a battle challenge, then that's a way to get it out, because they're probably not going to block anyway. So pretty solid option there. And then there's kind of a few flex heroes. With Urim and Thummim every turn, it's really nice to have Elijah in here, and Zadok can ban to him. So you can get your chain of heroes and then end it with Elijah to pick off their one evil character that they don't have enhancements for, or um, is just not gonna win the battle for them. Um, and then Haggai is also in there just to kind of make the banding chain bigger. And then he also can, if he's in play, then he makes Zechariah negate characters as well. So if you need to negate one of their pesky characters that is hurting your banding chain, then getting Haggai out pretty quick is really nice. And then he also gets Noah's Ark from reserve. And then Cherubim is just part of the banding chain. I mean, if you get all of these characters out and then end them with Zechariah, the nice part about this banding chain is that it's all CBN or CBI. So if you go to Ezekiel, negate a few cards, like some annoying lost souls or something, Band of Cherubim, and then you can Zadok is CBI, Aaron is CBN, Haggai is CBN, Ezra is now, because Cascade Negate was reversed, it made this deck better, because now negating Ezra does not negate the Captive Priest, and so Ezra his band is effectively CBI. Jeshua is CBN in battle, so you can really get a huge band going and then cap it off with Zechariah and just be negating everything except for star cards, which is usually gets the job done. Although it is good, you definitely want to have Colosseum out if you can, to stop the Scattereds, the Reap the Whirlwinds, Abandonment, all that kind of nasty stuff. And then the enhancements, pretty much just go with all the best star cards. Light in the Darkness and Day of the Lord is some battle winners if you do need to swing in low and get something going. David definitely was able to pull out those on a few occasions just to get some early rescues if I wasn't able to get the combo off for whatever reason. Feast of Trumpets, and there's kind of a artifact answer. Have to use it off of David, but usually I get David out pretty quick, and if not, I can search for him with Zadok Anoints. And then also fodder for Zerubbabel's Temple to generate a lost soul if need be. Royal Parade is a great addition from LOC. It's an interrupt and bounce, and it has teal, so that works out well. First Sacrifice works well with Urim and Thummim. If you look at their hand and they've got an evil card that you want to take out, then you just play First Sacrifice and then underdeck that evil card and then go in with whoever you need to. Then Emmaus Road also gets things set up. You can go to Offering Your Son, you can go to Delivered, you can go to a Battle Winner, or you can go to David is one of the key things on first turn in order to get both Captive Priest and David. And then Triumphal Entry is kind of it's really the only way to get your good dominance to search them out directly, other than Priest of Christ and David. So a way to get Son of God, which is really nice, or to get Guardian in the early game. So that's kind of the offense. We'll go to the defense now. Like I said, this Mayhem is supposed to be a doubt. Otherwise, dominants are pretty standard. I mean, there's no Burial, which was really a staple in Type 2 for a long time until the new Guardian came out, and there was no reason to play the old Guardian over this one. And it's such a cheap cost to do, just discarding a good enhancement from hand, that it kind of makes Burial not very useful. And with Melchizedek and other protect heroes, Abigail, Hannah, just protecting lost souls from evil cards, all those going around, like it's just definitely better options now. Rubble and Dust, I think, is worth it. There's so many weapons, so many place enhancements. If you run into a Glory of the Lord on a temple, then that's a good answer to that. I guess that was one thing I didn't mention is part of the reason I ran Z's Temple is because if I ran Solomon's Temple or Tabernacle, then gotta have Glory of the Lord in there, and I just really didn't have the space for an extra good dominant, just because the offense is super tight list. Yeah, I was having trouble figuring out what to cut for Wall of Protection. Ended up cutting Feast of Unleavened Bread just because, like I said earlier, getting good cards out of reserve was really no problem. So yeah, that was kind of a bummer to lose out on another option, another feast for Zerubbabel's Temple, but just didn't really need it. And it was also losing out on a battle winner for David. But yeah, I think with Light in the Darkness and Day of the Lord, I mean, Light in the Darkness resets itself, which is great for David. So yeah, anyways, back to the defense. We were already done with the offense. Yeah, Vain Philosophy, kind of the same philosophy there as with First Sacrifice, except for the good cards. If you look at their hand and they've got, Son of God or something in there, then you can just play Vain Philosophy when they're not expecting it and take it out. It also works really well with Betrayal. It's like you go Nebi, Betrayal, they've got two good battle winners, and you Betrayal one, Vain Philosophy the other, and then you've won yourself the battle. And also get a +3 or +4 if you count Betrayal. Colosseum, like I said, is mainly for the offense. I did have to build around it with the defense. You'll notice that there's no Scattered in here. There's no Belshazzar's Banquets, which is kind of tough with Crimson. Honestly, it might have been better to just put a few in here, just because Colosseum is such a big target, or like people, they're going to drop their woes on it, they're going to drop their shipwreck on it, just because if you're not built around it, it is a very strong card. And also Sheol, gotta have that. I've got one in reserve as well, so just doubling up on that. You can grab it out of reserve with Wages. I think yeah, I guess Nimrod doesn't go to reserve because they didn't have reserve with Cloud. Yeah, I think Wages is the only way to get it out of reserve, but it's really just there as like a backup, because using the Add to Battle ability is really good. 2 copies of Sheol in a deck with Melchizedek is maybe a little risky, but the Add to Battle ability just makes so much sense to have a duplicate of it, and then people are going to be negating Melchizedek if they want to use their own Sheol, or just Distress Lost Souls everywhere. And so it's nice because I can, if they have multiple Lost Souls out, I can use Sheol to underdeck their Distress Lost Soul and turn Melchizedek back on. For the evil characters, I guess I also put in Damascus, another way to get merchants right away, to get Nebi right away. And then also, if you don't get it early on, you've already got plenty of evil characters, and then the Fortress is just a really good value card. I definitely think it was a worthwhile play, and you can search it out with Nimrod, just gives him another target, puts it in play right away. It would be nice if it just responded to all search abilities. It definitely have a lot of, I guess not a lot. I did have Jonah in here last year, but did not have it in this version. But Merchants and Sheol as both kind of search counters maybe don't need Damascus. But I like, the versatility with the sight, and the size, or increasing your hand size too, can be nice in some cases. Pagan Sailors, kind of already mentioned, his value is really just like activating an Endless Treasures to either go to Ashurpol or to go to Flying Scroll. Flying Scroll can take the hero in battle if it's multi-brigade, or if they're attacking with a territory class character, and multi-brigade characters are all over the place, and it's a lot harder to negate the artifact with special initiative than if it was just something in battle. Conjurers is, there wasn't a whole lot of space for evil enhancements in the reserve, and I was even having trouble kind of deciding what evil enhancements to run in reserve. Maybe this is where the Banquets would go in, because if they're negating Colosseum, then Banquets are just super good off of Conjurers because they're pretty low. And but it's also nice that Conjurers can grab enhancements from deck if I have other magicians. So usually that's okay because I also have two soothsayers and one astrologers. So the soothsayers didn't get quite as much value as I was hoping to off of them, just with distress Lussel being everywhere and just not getting them out super quick. But they did help in a few key cases, and I'll kind of talk about that in some of the game commentary. Um, but so naming a card, if another magician is in play, you can name a card. Each player is to set aside X cards from hand until this card leaves play, and restrict those that do not from playing the named card from hand. So usually if you're playing it and you don't know what they're doing or what they're playing, you're like naming dominance you've already played, or just things that you really can't afford to for them to play right now. But when you're looking at their hand every turn with Urim and Thummim, and then you also have Oath of Purity, then you can activate Urim and Thummim, look at their hand, and then bounce both soothsayers, and then put them both down, and you can name, two different cards, or you can name one, and they can only set aside X cards for one of them, and so then they're stuck with, still not being able to play that card. Just whatever defensive battle winner they have. But like I said, I really wasn't able to get as much value off of them as I was hoping, and I think that there's still potential for them to be really good in those cases. But characters like Joshua that can just underdeck them really hurt. Another reason to get Ashurpol up, because it does protect them in territory from Joshua. So yeah, I don't know. I think that they're fun. They're just kind of like versatile cards. Maybe not the best options, but definitely, kind of just fun to try out and play. And people are using lots of good brigades these days, so I think they're pretty strong in most cases. Then astrologers, I ended up having to cut one copy just because I wanted some other characters in here. Maybe it would be worth trying to squeeze in the other one just to really cycle through some cards and get initiative, have more magicians for both conjurers and soothsayers, but and invoking terror really, it combos well with astrologers, so maybe it'd be worth trying to squeeze the other one in there. Maybe Nimrod's not worth it. He is nice for getting out merchants and just putting them in play, or Sheol. So yeah, he's probably worth it. Mounted forces, taking the enhancement from reserve is decent. Basically the same thing as conjurers, but mainly having that CBP band I think is really strong. Just because fight by the number stuff, if someone's coming in with a lone Zechariah or something, then having that option to get the numbers up there, I think is pretty strong. But I don't know, maybe it's not worth it. Also if they have Angel of the Lord, having options to get multiple evil characters in battle is always a good idea. And then the three Babylonian superstars right here, I doubled up on all three of them. Nebuchadnezzar, obviously, just go grab any OT Crimson card and add it to hand or battle. Nurgle to get those CBN enhancements. Really strong with Seized by Babylon. Also good with Betrayal off of a Swift Forces or something. Even invoking terror in a pinch. And then also Babylonian Merchants is that heavy search counter, really strong there. And then Deceiver is just in there to fetch any of these guys. I also do have Aliens in reserve. I don't think I ever pulled him out. This deck doesn't really struggle that much with Soul Gen. So maybe it would be better to cut Aliens for maybe that second copy of Astrologers, or another evil enhancement to play. But then Deceiver doesn't end up going to reserve, so I don't know, maybe it's worth it just having that extra Soul Gen option. But that was just another LOC ad that I thought should be in here. Let's talk about the enhancements now. So Jealousy was a last minute switch in for Treasures of War, and I think this was definitely the right play. So with Doubt tossing multi-brigade enhancements and then Colosseum tossing enhancements with cannot be negated in the special ability, then Jealousy just becomes a super toss. Because it's XO or X's number of heroes in play. Like I've obviously got a ton of heroes, and ideally I'll have them out, by turn, or a whole bunch out by turn 1 or 2, which makes this a super strong toss. If I have Colosseum out, I can just pop it with Nebuchadnezzar, or if I get Doubt out, then that's a strong toss there too. And if it's not tossed, decreasing hero XX isn't a terrible option. Usually I'm not going to have only Lost Souls in my territory because it's probably not going to be turn 1. It's probably not going to be that effective on turn 1 unless your hero just comes out with your opponent comes out with or they put down a few heroes and then attack. But ideally, if we're going first, we're going to have a bunch of heroes out, and if we're going second, they're not going to have enough to make Jealousy that great for a first turn block. So I don't know, maybe. Lurking is the new, or one of the seasonal promos from earlier this year. I was able to get a couple of those, so I put one in here. And I don't know if it was really worth it. I mean, it is nice to have that interrupt and then band to your Nebi or something to pull in Swift Horses or Seized by Babylon or some other battle winner. But I don't know. I didn't use it super often, and I didn't really go anywhere. I think I maybe banded to aliens once, but that was when it was like my only option, because that was all out of other evil characters. So maybe if I use Nebuchadnezzar's Pride in the deck, then it would be pretty good, because you can get stuck with Nebuchadnezzar or something set aside, or Nurgle set aside with Nebuchadnezzar's Pride, and then Lurking can ban to an evil character in set aside area. So that can actually be pretty good and catch someone off guard. So maybe if I did Nebi's Pride instead of the Nyx Teachings, could be worthwhile. But I like the Nyx Teachings for having that territory control. But with Noah's Ark being as popular as it is, then maybe it's not as good as I think. Wages, obviously, Betrayal, pretty standard. Getting that underdeck and that draw, and then Invoking Terror is just more territory control, and you can cycle them with the Magicians. And then Dream and Swift Horses, both as just the interrupt and draw. I just did 2 and 2 because, you don't get as much value out of the Swift Horses unless you get it onto Nurgle or Nebi. And I've also got these 2 warriors here too. So I think 2 and 2 is probably the best ratio there. And then Season of Babylon, super great card, especially in Type 2 when there are going to be so many sites and fortresses to target. So with Babylonians, that's definitely going to be way better than Nebi's Pride in my opinion, because it's CBP and then good brigades in battle. Usually that's going to be as many heroes that are in battle at least, if not more. So capturing all but one hero in battle that they probably don't have a negate for, so that they don't get special initiative, then that can be pretty strong. So now I think I'm just going to leave the deck up here so that you guys have it for a reference. But I am going to pull up my notes because this is like 2 weeks after Nats, so I really didn't remember or didn't expect to remember everything. So I typed it out, made some notes. So my first game was against John Mialishin. John's been playing a long time and has been in Type 2 for quite a while. It's always fun playing him. And so right away, I got a Captive Priest with Remnant, and so that was first turn, get it going right away. Kind of felt good to starting off on a good foot, I guess. I decided to use Vain Philosophy on turn one to make sure that there weren't any unpleasant surprises awaiting the priests. Like if I had seen a Scattered or something, then I know that Ahamaz is gotta be in there. He did have the Rabshka from LOC, but no other unpreventable threats, so I just went all out with the Captive Priest, Ezra, and Priest of Christ. I don't think John knew what I was doing exactly. I'm not sure. I don't think we played last year, so maybe he wasn't familiar with the combo. But he still didn't decide to block. He didn't want me to get a good dominant either way, and so he just didn't block, and I got to one right away. On his turn, he decided to put down the Rabshko with the 2k horses on them, so I knew that I probably wouldn't be able to get him to block from hand, and I would need to get to David or Triumphal Entry or something if I wanted to get Valley out anytime soon. He attacked with Ethiopian Treasure, and he played Unified Kingdom to grab some of the heroes that I put down, and I couldn't block that, or at least I didn't want to, because I would have to lose some of my heroes. So he got one there. And then unfortunately I didn't draw anything to get to David on my second turn. And since I didn't really have a good rescue, I decided I was like, okay, no, I'm just going to go for it. I had Second Coming in my hand. I played it to grab Valley. And I figured that could put me in a position where I had enough heroes to just get in and get, hopefully 7 quick rescues. Or a 6 if I was able to get to Son of God. Bit of a risky play, but I think that with my deck, it's usually better to just get out the offense as fast as possible, because as in some of my other games when I wasn't able to combo off in the early game, then I was just kind of stuck drawing the good cards, and there's really not a whole lot to speed the deck up on offense. Aside from just those Zadokanoids to search, there's really no drawing, so it's little risky. It's all on the searching there. So let's see. I was able to get to 2, so I pull out the Valley, got the Captive Priests, and got out a bunch of priests, and went with Zechariah to negate his enhancements. On his turn, he had another Unified Kingdom, which likely would have gotten him another Lost Soul, because he went out with ET and played a Unified Kingdom, and he just said he was going to ban to my entire offense. He didn't realize, though, that Zechariah would be negating his enhancements as well, and so it ended up negating the band, and it didn't have any other enhancements for Ethiopian Treasure, so I just blocked with Nebi, grabbed merchants from my deck to get big numbers, and was able to stop him there. So after that, I was pretty much set up. I had Urim and Thummim out to guide my attacks every turn, and Nebi to pull out the defensive speed. And John, he wasn't able to catch up, and I ended up winning that game 7-1. So, with a pretty big differential after the first game, of course, I was paired up with Tyler Stevens in round 2, and I did get the Captive Priest in the first turn, but unfortunately he didn't have any Lost Souls, and he also was familiar with the deck. So I went first. I decided to battle challenge with all the priests, and instead of going to Ezra and Priest of Christ, because it's a battle challenge, I just went to Jehoiada, and I searched my deck for David, so that on next turn I could just grab Valley. Unfortunately, Tyler didn't draw any Lost Souls on his first turn either in his draw 3, and so while I was able to get Valley on my second turn, get my offense set up, I wasn't able to rescue a Lost Soul on turn 2 either, because Rescuer's Choice in Type 2 doesn't allow you to rescue a captured character or a Lost Soul that is removed from play and brought back in, or removed, I guess it wasn't even removed from play, just removed from being a Lost Soul. So it basically just gets reset once it no longer is a captured character. So that was a little unfortunate. Meanwhile, Tyler was able to set up his offense pretty quickly, as Throne does, and I didn't really have any defensive options right away. I think on his second turn, I was able to use merchants or something else to capture Jehoshaphat, his land of bondage, and then I was able to rescue him. So I was just crossing my fingers that he was only running one copy. But then the other one come out, and then from there I kind of knew I was in trouble. I had also drawn both of my Wicked Souls early on, and my defense just wasn't coming out. Tyler was able to pick up a few of my evil characters, and then I just wasn't able to hit any more. Like Joshua was able to underdeck my merchants, and then a few of, when I was able to block, he was able to take out the evil character right away. I did use Doubt twice in the game. I think it got me a block the second time, or at least definitely pretty close on both. The reason I got to use it twice is because the first time I blocked, I got some value, got to take out some heroes, but then he had Valley of Salt to place my Doubt beneath deck, and then I was able to draw it back later in the game, use it again. It had a really sweet toss battle, which I think I've got later in my notes. Game against Tyler, I've got a lot of notes because a lot of fun things happened. So yeah, so the second time, it was just this crazy battle. I blocked it out, cooked out everybody but Abigail, Ishmael, and his protected Jehoshaphat by negating heroes. And then I had Invoking Terror, Seized by Babylon, and Jealousy in my hand. So I used Seized to capture Ishmael and Abigail, because he just had red and purple in battle at that point. And then, unfortunately, I had to toss Jealousy to take out Jehoshaphat because he had 2 counters on him. Jehoshaphat's a 4-3, but with the 2 counters, experience credit, it was a 6-5, and so Invoking Terror wasn't going to cut it with only its 4 strength. I think I also had Betrayal, now that I think about it. So I think the right play, or what would have worked in that case if I had tossed both Betrayal and Invoking Terror to take him out, he would have gotten initiative on, or between one of those, so maybe he would have had something to play. But I was thinking that it was probably better to use Jealousy and then save Betrayal for later. This turned out to not be the right move because he had Jealousy to, or he had You Will Remain to add King Manasseh to battle after I played Jealousy. And King Manasseh is a 5/11, so tossing him down was not going to work with my Betrayal and Invoking Terror. Definitely would have worked with Jealousy because there were tons of heroes in play. I passed, and so it was a stalemate, and he was able to play Soldier's Prayer to grab Faith of Joshua, which he tossed for 7, and then he also tossed Root of Jesse for 5, and that's lethal on Doubt with only 12 toughness. So if I had saved Jealousy for Manasseh, I think that would have been that would have worked. But of course, I mean, at the time I didn't know who he'd add to battle and how much tossing power he would have. Kind of forgot about Faith of Joshua. I did know that he had a Root of Jesse, but wasn't really thinking about it. His defense held up pretty well. He was playing like a similar, a little bit of Philistines, a little bit of Canaanites, kind of a splashy black defense with all the add to battle with Philistine Outpost, with Sheol, Gates of Hell, with like the Winged Leopard and King of Tyrus, that kind of stuff. So definitely a lot of consistency in his defense and like trying to just shove, big baddie over after big baddie into the battle. It was good to have Urim and Thummim to look at his hand so I could kind of figure out what the ideal rescue is every turn. But just with some of those big evil characters, I mean, especially King of Tyrus is kind of hard for this deck to deal with. I really have to kind of rely on Bethlehem having that out so that I can negate King of Tyrus by reserving a hero. Bethlehem's such a great card. I mean, like, should definitely have Bethlehem in your deck if you don't. Shameless plug, sort of. I did have to make some non-ideal plays, like playing Shipwreck on Sheol when I should have saved it for his Noah's Ark, and that would have saved me later in the game. But we hit the time limit, and we were in the last round. It was tied up 5-5. Tyler hadn't gotten either Son of God or Second Coming, and I think I was able to at least get Son of God. I think I top decked the Second Coming with Triumphal Entry, but because Joshua was negated at the time by a Distressed, my deck ended up being shuffled, and I wasn't able to draw into it. Tyler had 6 good brigades in play and only 5 cards in hand, so I put down both copies of Soothsayers of Babylon and just doubled up on Son of God, hoping to at least avoid the full loss. If he couldn't play Son of God, he would only be able to come in and rescue for 6. But he still had, Solomon's Dream and multiple Soldier's Prayers that he could draw into, and so I knew that the odds were pretty slim that with all his territory control with Joshua and Captain and just other cards that can negate evil characters, that my odds were pretty low, but I figured it was worth a shot, because if you can at least not get the full loss, then you still get some points in a tournament, which is especially in round 2, you don't know how it's gonna turn out by the end of the game or by the end of the day. So yeah, it almost worked. So he attacked with his big throne chain. I was pretty sure I wouldn't be able to stop it. His Joshua underdecked one of my Soothsayers while Captain negated the other, and he was just hoping to draw into either Son of God or Second Coming so that he could play them during battle and then just win the battle. I think I blocked with Nebi, and I played a Dream from deck and then a Betrayal from my hand and underdecked The Lord Delivers, and I tried to just kind of draw into something. I think I had a Seized by Babylon in my hand, I think, and then some other battle winners to take out everyone but Captain and just force the stalemate. But he still had Faith of David, which would have been my target with Betrayal if the Lord Delivers hadn't been there to negate it. So I just had to go with the Lord Delivers, because if he negates Betrayal, then puts my cards back, and I'm at a disadvantage there. So he added a hero that can ban to some of mine. I think it was King Manasseh again, and then he actually ended up banning in too many heroes, so he didn't have initiative. Even if he had, or he realized it too late, he banned it in too many heroes that even if he had played Christian Martyr on one of them, he still wouldn't have initiative to play something in battle, which he did have a Solomon's Dream he could have played to get while Soothsayer was still negated by Captain. But I ran out of defense. He got number 6, and I was just crossing my fingers he didn't have a way to negate Soothsayers in his discard phase, because once Captain's out of battle, then Soothsayers is back on. And so he sat there for a while trying to figure it out. He had both Solomon's Dream and a Soldier's Prayer in his hand, so he knew that there had to be some way to do it. He played Faith to just start looking through his deck for options, and as he was looking through, I was getting sort of excited. He was just kind of going through, and I was thinking that, maybe he doesn't actually have a way to do it, and was pretty much calling the game. And I was, I kind of was thinking about some of the cards that might help him, and I commented there's something along the lines of oh yeah, and I hit your 3 woes earlier with Melchizedek too, thinking because I discarded it, he wouldn't be able to search for 3 woes to negate my Soothsayers. But then as soon as I said it, it just clicked with both of us, pretty much immediately, and I was like, oh shoot, I should not have said anything. And he played Solomon's Dream to search his deck for Second Coming, which he could play Second Coming to search his discard pile for 3 woes, plays 3 woes to negate Soothsayers, a Soldier's Prayer to grab Solomon's Dream back, and then Solomon's Dream to grab and play Son of God to get to the 7. And of course, if I had saved my Shipwreck for his Ark instead of using it on Sheol, maybe I wouldn't have gotten a block, but I would have been able to use my Falling Away on his only meek hero so that he wouldn't have anyone to play Solomon's Dream on. But it's always, those what-ifs that you think of after the game that, you try to make yourself feel better. But who knows if he would have thought of it if I hadn't said anything. Probably would have if he just glanced through his discard pile, and he's definitely a top player. He ended up winning, so he's going to be trying to go through all of the different cards in his deck that could help him. But I mean, I think I still should have just waited until we actually called the game to say anything. But didn't end up mattering, even if he hadn't gotten the full win. I mean, he beat me by 2 points in the end, so we would have been tied. But he had the head-to-head victory either way. So it would have been funny if Soothsayers had actually forced the timeout win, but did not. Final score: Tyler won 75-725. There we go. So third game was against Emmanuel Echeverria. I didn't really know him super well. I think we met like once or twice in person, and then mostly we were just, or we were both in like some of the online tournaments, so I kind of knew who he was, and a really great guy, fun to play, and yeah, it was a really good game. He was the guy who was running the Daniel deck. I really didn't know what to expect since we hadn't really played much before. But he didn't either, which was good for my combo deck because not everyone had seen the Valley combo, and obviously if they know not to block Priest of Christ right away, then it kind of puts a damper on things. But I was pretty surprised. He put down a Meek Daniel Soul in the opening draw, and I mean I knew that meant he had to be playing a Daniel deck, but like, did he actually have 12 of those for the full-on Daniel deck and 2 Covenant Breakers? Like, I was thinking like, wow, that might have been, or that'd be kind of crazy. I mean, they have to be at least a few tournaments going on, which they haven't been able to have too many. But he was able to get a few. I mean, from the online tournaments, and then the Connecticut play group up there, they were able to start hosting some tournaments, and so he was able to trade for them, and I thought it was really cool. I think it'd be cool to try out a Daniel deck sometime. Maybe I'll just try one on Lackey, just because don't have to worry about having enough Meek Daniel Souls there. But yeah, let's get into the game. So I quickly realized that Daniel, a Daniel deck could be a big issue for my deck, both my offense and my defense. On my offense, he's going to be running multiple copies of Babylonian Soldiers, which are a generic Daniel evil character. So obviously you're going to be running them, and they just remove captured heroes. No, I think it's just captured characters whenever they block for to either discard an artifact or draw X, where X is the number of captured characters in your land of bondage. So if I have 4 captured priests there and then block with him, then they can just banish one of them right away. Which really hurts if I haven't comboed yet. And then obviously the Daniel offense is the bane of Nebuchadnezzar's existence, or at least the TXP Nebuchadnezzar. So that was going to be an issue. I think either way, or either he didn't block my first turn Priest of Christ, or I decided to go for Jehoiada for some reason instead. I know I wasn't able to combo on the first turn. I don't remember exactly why, but either way, it was second turn when I was able to combo, but he was able to chump block with Bab Soldiers and remove the captive priest I was rescuing for. I think I must have gotten the David, because I'm pretty sure I got all 4 captive priests prior to his block. Well, of course, if I did combo on that turn, then I wouldn't have been able to rescue a captive priest anyway. Either way, Bab Soldiers came out, and I was like, oh, well, that could be a problem. His offense started out pretty strong. He got Shadrach and Meshach. Maybe it was Abednego. He had 2 of the 3 guys right away, and then he also had Michael, and he had Faith to get Daniel out. And I didn't really have any answers for the first few turns, so we rescued a few there, and then like I commented about Wall of Protection earlier, it doesn't protect your characters, but I thought I was being super smart by taking his Daniel and then searching my deck with Joshua for Wall of Protection. Didn't work out as I had hoped, so he could still ban to Daniel. Eventually, I got my defense set up and was able to take out Shadrach and Meshach with Betrayal and Invoking Terror, and then I stopped his banding and got out Asher Pole to hold off Michael. I think Emmanuel got a couple of blocks in, but the Babylonian Daniel defense doesn't have very many CBP and CBN options. I mean, if you're not able to run like all the stronger Babylonian characters like Nurgle Shurizer, you've got a few good options there now. It's definitely getting better, but Zechariah is still, kind of just able to get in there and put in some work. Ultimately got me the 7-3 win. Props to Emmanuel for trying out the Daniel deck. It really doesn't have precedent for being a top tier deck in any category yet, but he certainly proved that it has potential, which is sweet. And with Daniel's Prayer being added to its toolbox soon, whenever those are coming out, I think should be soon. I think we'll probably get more information on that with also Pride of Lions, which was spoiled this past week. And I think the main reason that I won our game is really that he didn't draw into Foretelling Angel or any of its multiple tutors for like the entire game. And I recognize that was definitely very lucky, because that game could have swung back heavily in his favor if he had been able to get Foretelling Angel early. And usually his deck is able to do that, because that's really what the Daniel deck is built around. And he also didn't realize that it could have been using Fiery Furnace to take out my Captive Priests, and that would have bought him a few turns of Soul Drought, since I think I ended up having to rescue all 3 priests that hadn't been banished by Babylonian soldiers. So I was really relying on him not banishing them with Captive Priests and not banishing them with Bab soldiers, or not drawing into another one. So yeah, definitely got a little bit lucky there. Brings me to round 4, which is against Joe Schaefer. I always enjoy playing Joe because he usually has these competitive but still off meta decks, which admittedly isn't as rare in Type 2 as it is in Type 1, but still makes the games more interesting. That was kind of the reason that I didn't play Throne, because I thought that it would be more fun to play something that was a little less meta, or less just kind of punch in for the win. And so this time he brought back his Creation of the World deck, which I figured out on the first turn as soon as Forbidden Fruit went to reserve for an answer to prayer, and then Rachel exchanged for Joseph the Dreamer in his deck. And so that's kind of the benefit of knowing your opponent and knowing kind of the sort of decks that they like to play. He knew, he was familiar with Lightning Priest, and so he was sort of able to tech around that as he could. And I sort of did the same. I had no evil characters in my opening draw, so I didn't even have anyone to block Joseph and even give him the opportunity to play Creation. But on his second turn, I did have Nurgle Shreezer, but no enhancements that made him worth blocking with. So if he pulls off a Creation, then the game's probably over. So I had to give him 2 freebies right away. And then basically on my turns, the same exact thing happened that happened against Tyler, where I he didn't draw any Lost Souls on his opening 8, and then didn't draw any on his first turn, draw 3. And so for the first turns, I did the same thing with doing the Captive Priests, and then going to Jehoiada and searching for David, so that on the second turn I could do Valley. Unfortunately, Valley has to release all heroes, so I can't just rescue for 1 Captive Priest and then only release 3 and add them to battle. So still means that I wasn't able to actually rescue a Lost Soul in the first 2 turns, but it's still worth it to get set up instead of just going for a rescue on the 1 Captive Priest without getting set up. So it's a little disappointing that I got to 5 in both games against Joe and Tyler, and didn't have those 2 first turn ability to rescue. Maybe the better option in the future is just to hold off for another turn, try to get a different rescue in for one of the Captive Priests, and then hope that they draw a Lost Soul on the next turn, so that you can rescue for that Lost Soul, and then just play Valley for 3. Which 3 is still pretty good if you can grab Eliezer, Zechariah, and Melchizedek or something just to protect the lost souls that you have out. So that's something to consider for the future, I guess, or anyone else is wanting to try out the deck. Once I did get the setup, I was able to get a few rescues because Joe didn't really draw into a whole lot of defense. Eventually, he drew into Assyrian mercenaries to get someone who could get around my Fight by the Numbers Zechariah band. And I saw the mercenaries in his hand with a few capture enhancements, so I decided to hope for the best, and instead of going with Zechariah, I actually ended the chain with Ahamaz, like I said earlier, because he's got that protection from capture. And I was kind of anticipating him into exchange for like Naaman, who makes his enhancements cannot be negated. So the downside of me not having played against Syrians very much, though, is I didn't really expect this little combo that he had, or that Syrians kind of have in their toolbox, which is added by LOC, is really good. So King Rezin can block and play Damascus, and then search for Assyrian. Usually people either do the Strong Force or Captain of the Chariots. The Strong Force just allows you to play an enhancement with the capture ability, and then Captain of the Chariots allows you to equip a weapon, and then so Rezin can ban to either one of those. Joe grabbed Captain of the Chariots to equip Rezin with Naaman's Chariot and Horses from reserve, and he played an unsuccessful that he drew into. He also, could have played his capture enhancements there because Naaman's Chariot and Horses interrupts Ahamaz. So with that in mind, maybe Aaron's Staff would be worth trying out in the deck, because it makes your Tabernacle Priests cannot be negated, and having that CBN protection on Ahamaz would be pretty good, but I don't know if you really get enough value from it. I think there's only 4 Tabernacle Priests, and so you only get 4 cards to cycle through when they enter battle and hit the top evil cards. But anyways, he was able to get the block there, just ending the battle in a stalemate. And by the end, I was able to stall him quite a bit by taking Joseph with both Flying Scrolls. He was able to reset him once after having Colosseum stop him from playing Answer to Prayer, and he never ended up being able to play Creation throughout the game. And he never ended up drawing the big 2. I had gotten Son of God with Triumphal Entry and Joshua, and so we were tied 4-4. We ran out of time, and he had run out of heroes, so on his last turn he had to use Covenant with Noah to grab a hero from deck, which I was pretty sure meant he didn't have one in hand, so I just dropped Chronicles to negate it and played the Second Coming to play Son of God again for the timeout win 5-4. So it kind of feels a little, cheeky and be the one who draws their dominance while the other guy doesn't. But also, having that Triumphal Entry definitely helps, because I can search it out to play it. It's definitely good if you have ways in the brigade you're playing to search for your good dominance, especially in Type 2, having ways to get those out, just because a lot of games can time out, just with having the balanced offense and defense there. Had I known the combo for his defense, I probably would have played Chronicles of the Kings earlier in the battle phase. That's good to negate enhancements, so I could negate his Naaman's Chariot and Horses, so he wouldn't have the interrupt. But he might have been able to draw into unsuccessful anyway off of the draw with Captain of the Chariots. I'm not sure which order he drew them in, which I guess unsuccessful would be negated by Chronicles as well. So I think that would have gotten me one. So if I had known that, then I could have played Chronicles then, but I wasn't really thinking about it. I was just thinking like, okay, I can just save Chronicles to negate something afterwards. I've got plenty of heroes in battle, so if he captures 1 or 2 of them, should still have some options, but that unsuccessful draw was pretty nice. So definitely a bit of luck on my end. I think I drawed at him for a couple turns too after slowing down my draws, and Sheol interdecking a couple of Lost Souls. And that extra Lost Soul that I rescued at the end with Second Coming was definitely absolutely necessary for me to get second place, because Joe and I ended up tied for points, and because we had planned to play round robin. The spreadsheet kind of and that extra lost soul, that I was able to get with Second Coming on the last turn there, meant that Joe and I didn't tie, which was absolutely necessary for me to get second place too, because Joe and I ended up tied for points. And since we the spreadsheet did kind of get messed up, so that we weren't able to play round robin exactly, but we knew that whichever one of us won was able to play, or was going to play Steve Leviton in round 5, and whoever lost was going to play Emmanuel again, because we had both already played Emmanuel and neither of us had played Steve. And I think I got kind of lucky that I wasn't, or didn't have to play Emmanuel again, because I knew that the Daniel matchup would be kind of tough for my deck, especially if he was able to, get into a Foretelling Angel early on in this game. Like, I don't think he would get as unlucky against me as he did twice. So, yeah, definitely a good game against Joe. Always enjoy playing him. So round 5, like I said, played against Steve Leviton. Ended up being one of the most challenging games for my deck, which was honestly a bit of a surprise. Not that Steve's a bad player by any means, but he was relatively newer to Type 2, and he just switched over at the last minute to give us even numbers, which was great. Thank you, Steve. And then his Type 2 deck was actually a Type 1 deck with 49 cards added to it, which is pretty sweet. Gives you some versatility if you're just kind of playing for fun and want to have your Type 1 and Type 2 deck together, so you can just have one deck for any situation, which is nice. But obviously decks that are built specifically for the category are usually going to be a little bit better. I also knew that he lost 7-0 to Tyler in the first round, which, certainly probably says more about Tyler than Steve. Steve, he told me during the game that he was just hoping to rescue 7 Lost Souls throughout the entire tournament, and he ended up rescuing 5 against me, so he got pretty much all the way there in that game, and then he ended up getting, I think, 1 or 2 wins on top of that. So this was the first game where I actually was able to get both Captive Priest and David on turn 1, which I was super pumped about. Usually, I thought that I would hit it in more than one of the 5 games, but it's how it goes sometimes. The problem, though, is that Steve drew the Complacent Lost Soul, which restricts dominance during the battle phase. So he had that in his draw 8, which obviously puts a significant damper on my strategy, because I'm going to be playing Valley during the battle phase. He also drew both Imitate and Dull, which, if not handled before comboing, would give a lot of trouble, because you get, like 8 searches off of doing Captive Priest twice. And then if he had a turn, that's even more, because he can imitate the Dull and just grab whatever evil enhancements he needed to completely wipe out my offense, which would definitely not be good. To add to the problem, I didn't draw any evil characters for the first few turns, which meant I couldn't block, and I didn't have any Babylonians, so Ezekiel couldn't negate the Lost Souls. That would have been, if I just had like 1 or 2 Babylonians in my opening hand as well, then I could have gone to, or I could have gotten out Valley, and then on my next turn go with Ezekiel to negate the 2 lost souls and then play Valley. Or negate the 3 lost souls if I had to. But I guess, when you're drawing the cards to get both David and Captive Priest on the first turn, then you're not going to be getting as much of the defense or the other counters you need. So it's the way it goes. But fortunately, I did have Light in the Darkness on the first turn, so I was able to search for Valley and rescue Dull with David before he could imitate it on his turn. And then on my second turn, I was able to rescue Complacent. So I was ready to combo with Valley on the next turn, just crossing my fingers that he didn't put down some other counter. And then get to his turn, and he puts down Babel, which is also another something I have to deal with. There are a lot of counters to the deck. Babel, Sheol, any other search counter, Covenant with Death, Hezekiah's Signet Ring, I guess, yeah, it's a search counter. Punisher, those kind of things are popular, but if I can go first before they get any of those down, then I can get in there and get set up before those are too much of a problem. But after a few turns, he got Babel down. I already had at least 4 brigades out, so Captive Priests were a no-go. Meanwhile, was Steve, he was using the Cloud Abraham engine, which I thought was super cool in Type 2. It's super fast. Once you get Abraham out and searching for a hero every turn, then he got Angel Asher to grab 2 heroes every turn, and he was able to get heroes out pretty much just as fast as my deck normally would be able to do, and I really didn't have any blocks early on. At one point, I did have a Dream and a Betrayal in my hand, and so in a desperate attempt to grab or to catch up, I blocked with Nebi, searched for another Dream, and played all of them for a draw 9. He ended up being able to negate the Betrayal and win the battle, so it was only a draw 6, and I still didn't even get what I needed to feel good about my offense or my defense. He had a Cloud Jacob early on, so I wasn't able to look at his hand with Urim and Thummim. I did get rid of Jacob for 1 turn with Urim and Thummim, but Abraham plus Angel Asher is able to get him back on the next turn. And I wasn't getting the next teachings I needed to take him. So I think it was maybe turn 5 or so I was able to deal or work around Babel. I think I got my Ezekiel, who was able to negate Babel. Or maybe I'd be able to get my brigades down with Oath of Purity. I don't remember for sure. But by that time, he had also drawn Sheol. And so I get out all the Captive Priests, and I end up, just saying I gotta go for it. He's got 2 other Lost Souls out, so I got all the Captive Priests out. He ended up with 4 Shield triggers, underdecked his 2 Lost Souls and his 2 Captive Priests, and had the Afflicted in territory. So I had to go to Joshua at the end to play Storehouse for my deck because Valley was the only card in my hand, and putting out all those priests, I think it was like 5 cards I would have had to discard from my hand if I had that many cards, if I didn't have Storehouse, but I needed that Valley, obviously. So I, even though it was only 2 Captive Priests, I was like, I still got to go for it. I got to get Melchizedek out. I got to get Zechariah out so my offense can start doing something. And so I played Valley, got out Melchizedek and Zechariah, and was able to get the soul there. I later used Flying Scroll offensively to take the Afflicted, and I intended to attack with Priest of Christ from my hand, knowing that Steve had a Reap the Whirlwind in his hand and no other evil characters in territory, so I wouldn't be able to go out with the band, and I took his 1 evil character so that Priest of Christ would be able to grab Angel of the Lord or maybe Son of God at that point. So I figured I might as well put in multiple heroes, and then I think I just wanted to grab Angel of the Lord, whichever evil character was in his hand. And so I planned, I just pushed in Joshua, I banned it to Ezra, released the Captive Priest, banned to him, and then I exchanged. I just in a complete brain fart, instead of adding my Priest of Christ to battle, I was like, oh well, I can put in more heroes if I go with Aaron, ban to Zadok, and then ban to Priest of Christ. But I put in Aaron and Zadok, and then I was like, oh wait, Zadok can't ban a Priest of Christ, so I had to, or I, just decided going with Zechariah. Hope he didn't have another evil character, but unfortunately he did, and was able to play Reap the Whirlwind, and that set me back quite a bit by shuffling all my heroes. He had a Doeg, I think. So yeah, that was actually kind of fitting that it was Doeg taking out all my priests. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go read your Bible. So after a hard fought game on both sides, he had just rescued his 5th lost soul. It was 5-5. I was holding either Son of God or Second Coming, and I think he had played Son of God. I could be wrong, but I hadn't played either, and I had one of them in my hand, and I was sitting there with Priest of Christ still in my hand, no battle winner, just crossing my fingers that Steve didn't put down another evil character with his Doeg, because then I was able. Fortunately he didn't on his turn. I got another Flying Scroll, took his Doeg, didn't mess it up this time, just put Priest of Christ into battle, and I think maybe he already played Christian Martyr, or he just didn't have it at the time, fortunately. So either I was going to rescue a lost soul and could play the dominant, or he was going to block from hand and I could search for the other one. So I had to block, hoping that I didn't have either. So I might have already been at 6 at that point. Actually, I might have played the good dominant that I had, basically just to force him one way or the other. But so maybe he didn't have a choice. I don't remember for sure, but he blocked. I get the dominant for number 7, and when he had a super close 7-5 game, which secured my 2nd place. And in the end, I would have needed someone else to get a full win over Tyler in order to take first. But no one even ended up with a timeout win or tie against him. So congrats to him. He definitely deserved the win, even though he was playing Throne, which, sort of lame, but whatever. So congrats to Tyler. And yeah, it was a really fun tournament. Really great to see everybody, and if you weren't there, I hope to see you there next year, and play some Type 2. So, yeah, hope you guys like the deck. Feel free to try it out and try out some of the tweaks I mentioned or didn't mention. See what works, and see maybe there are some other priests that I didn't consider, but. I played this deck last year, and this is kind of the build I ended up with, just thinking that these are the cards that I think work best. There's probably some tweaking on the defense that could definitely do some of that, but I think the offense is at a really solid place right now, and I really like it. I mean, they're aren't very many battle winners, but really I didn't ever feel like there was a need for it. One of the downsides of or I guess changes from last year is that Joshua the Restorer is the same character as Joshua the High Priest, so you didn't have that option for the CBN battle winners. Which maybe Amariah the Priest is worth it, having him in here, because Royal Parade is pretty good on him. Light in the Darkness, take out a demon and a human, and then Day of the Lord, take out all the evil characters in battle. Could be worth it, get that CBI action going, but I really didn't feel like I needed it. So yeah, let me know what you guys think. Like I said, deck list is in the description, and yeah, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye.